Good morning. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the November 21st Board of County Commissioners meeting. We'll start with our invocation. I would like to invite my new friend and pastor, Jason Carter, to come forward, and he's going to lead us in prayer today. Please stand. Right there.
It's a privilege to be here today with you all. New senior pastor at Trinity Wellsprings Church over in Satellite Beach, and we're just 4 months. My family's 4 months here in the Space Coast, and so I have 3 sons. The first was born in Costa Rica. The last 2 were born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and my family spent the last 11 years over in the only Spanish-speaking country of Africa, Equatorial Guinea. And so it really took our own family the last 11 years living overseas to appreciate how much America has been founded on so many civic organizations, interested politicians, and citizens that are really dedicated to serving so many volunteer hours and giving back to their communities. And so it's just a privilege to be with you today and see the working of our government and the working of so many citizens that want our communities to flourish. So let's pray. God of grace, we give you thanks today for the abundance in our lives, for the many blessings you shower down upon us each and every day, for the blessings too many to count that we often take for granted. This morning we want to pause and give you thanks for the gift of our spouses and families, for the gift of our children and grandchildren, for the gift of meaningful work, for a place to lay our head at night and food upon our tables. We give you thanks. We give you thanks that you make us a grateful and thankful people. Help us, Lord, not only during this Thanksgiving season, but we pray that in all of our moments and all of our days that we would be filled with thanksgiving and gratitude. May people around us notice our sense of gratitude and be encouraged by the thankfulness which is reflected in our lives. That you, O Lord, may find us slow to complain, but always quick to give thanks. God, we thank you for both the idea and the reality of America. We thank you for our freedom, for our great history, and for the hope for a future for our children and grandchildren. We thank you for our communities here in the Space Coast. We thank you for the many churches, civil society groups, and nonprofit organizations who volunteer their time and money to see our communities flourish. Today we remember people who live on the margins of our communities, for the homeless, for the abused, for families who have fallen on hard times, for the victims and families of senseless acts of violence, for people struggling to put their lives together in the wake of hurricanes in Houston, the Florida Keys, in Mexico, and the Caribbean. Oh God, thank you that you are God that is close to the brokenhearted. This morning I want to lift up every man and woman in this room, that you would grant them the wisdom, grant them the courage, grant them faith to live into the calling you have placed in their lives. Thank you for their dedication. Thank you for their willingness and their care for our community. And thank you for this day. Won't you encourage them that their lives and their vocations are not in vain, but invested with a deep sense of purpose and meaning. Oh God, may you give them eyes to see and ears to hear the stories, that their lives that they lead and the work that they do matters, and that it matters to you, O God, and that it matters to our communities. And we give you all the thanks and all the praise and all the glory through Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we need a motion to approve minutes from October 5th zoning meeting, October 10th regular meeting minutes, and September 28th special meeting minutes. We have a motion and we have a second. Anyone wish to vote no? Passes 5-0. Now we move into the selection of our new chairperson Do we have a nomination from?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Pritchett for chairman, chairwoman.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone wish to vote no? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and now you're going to take over.
Oh, my. Commissioner Barfield, your light is on. I'm guessing that's for,
That was the last one.
okay. We now need to entertain a motion to elect a vice chair.
I would like to make a motion to elect my distinguished colleague to my right, Commissioner Isnardi, to be vice chair.
I have a motion for Commissioner Isnardi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Commissioner Isnardi, welcome aboard. If y'all wouldn't. Yeah. Commissioner Smith, there's a tree for you.
Unless you want that up there.
Just a little bit of business before we move forward. Commissioner Smith, we have something we would like to present you with. And county manager has it. And commissioners, it's from the county commission. And we want to thank you for all the work you've done to serve the last year. It's been a lot of work, and you certainly are appreciated for it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let y'all know, I've been studying up on Robert's rules, so I hope I don't mess this up too badly, but it's a learning process, so I do embrace any information you guys want to give me or help me as we're moving forward with this. We're going to move into resolutions, and Commissioner Isnardi, I believe this one's yours.
Get myself a little organized here. Okay, I'm looking for Nicholas. Can you come on up, please? You can come on up, if you don't mind. I'm going to read you this resolution. Whereas Children's Home Society of Florida first opened its doors on November 17, 1902, as an orphanage to provide a safe home to the growing population of abandoned and homeless children in Jacksonville, thus solving an intense societal challenge. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida has grown from a team of 2 caring for 24 children in year 1 to a team of nearly 2,000 empowering more than 50,000 children and family members every year. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida has been the leader in enhancing change for children, from driving policy, establishing child labor laws and compulsory education laws, to fiercely advocating for children's rights in foster care and developing innovative solutions such as community partnership schools to turn odds into opportunities for kids. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida is the first to evolve to deliver solutions and services that address society's changing and growing needs. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida challenges tradition to form strategic partnerships with universities, nonprofits, for-profit entities, healthcare organizations, and others to deliver the right solutions at the right time to children and families. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida leads the way in bringing innovation into solutions and services that empower children and families to rise above the challenges and realize their full potential. And whereas Children's Home Society of Florida delivers such solutions in nearly every Florida community to change entire life trajectories for generations, and whereas Children's Home Society of Florida has been building bridges to success for children for 115 years, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby proclaim November 17, 2017 as Children's Home Society of Florida Day, and urge all citizens to recognize the good being done by Children's Home Society of Florida to empower more children and families to cross bridges to success so that they may realize their full potential. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 21st day of November, AD 2017. I want to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Isnardi, and I think Commissioner Barfield beat you, Commissioner Smith, in a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations, sir.
Would you like to say a few words
Sure,
about?
sure. Yeah, well, thank you to the commissioners for approving our resolution and recognizing Children's Home Society. You know, 115 years ago, we started as an orphanage in Florida to, as they said, to serve 24 kids. Now we serve 50,000 kids and families statewide throughout the state of Florida, 5,000 right here in Brevard every year. And we attack, you know, a comprehensive we attack comprehensive solution, you know, the comprehensive problem with comprehensive solutions. We use mental health care providers. We break down barriers to education and good jobs for families living in poverty. And so I would encourage all of you to join us in our journey, our next 115 years. And thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item, Commissioner Tabaya, just reading through Robert's rules, this is an action that we had just voted on the last meeting, so I would entertain a motion for you to rescind it if you'd like to, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but this is different. This is a resolution supporting a Senate bill, the last one, which is different than the House bill. So, in fact, this is different of substantive nature than the previous resolution.
Is it different than the last resolution you just put through, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't see a lot of difference in it. I still feel like it's just something we've already done. Mr. Knox?
It's basically the same resolution on a different body, so, I mean, you can proceed with the, I mean, if you're asking for a motion to rescind, I guess it would be the original motion that was passed last time. So you may have to act on this one separately.
Okay. I don't know. I'm going to have to just weigh in the wisdom of the commission, but I just feel like we just already voted on this, and I feel like we keep beating the same dead horse over and over. So I actually would like to entertain a motion to remove it from the agenda, but...
So moved.
Madam Chair, before we do that, I believe that's a debatable motion.
Yes, sir, and we can second it for discussion if you'd like, sir.
Thank you.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay, sorry.
Nay. We have two. The motion to remove it is in order, but I'm sorry, sir, I should have let you have your
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, prior to...
Boo-boo number one, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Before I read it, I would, and I'm not going to read it, but I do, certainly there are some substantial differences. And I would agree with you had there not been some changes since our last meeting. So I'd like to go over those changes. On November 7th, I introduced a resolution asked the Florida Statute 125.0104 to amend so that we would have extra tools for cleanup and protecting our lagoon. The resolution did not get a second. You're absolutely correct. And it would have died there. Had there not been a Facebook post the following day from our chairman, who posted thanking Senator Brandis of Pinellas County for filing a bill, Senate Bill 658, that would help local governments receive the flexibility they need for lagoon infrastructure fixes while serving economic tourism needs. A day later, Commissioner Smith's Facebook post thanked Randy Fine, Representative Randy Fine, for supporting Senator Brandis's bill. Now, in the newspaper the following day, Chairman Smith disavowed these posts as unauthorized, and it would have ended there. However, Our tourism director, Eric Garvey, liked one of these posts, not knowing that, and irregardless of whether or not it was a hack or unauthorized use or whatever the case may be. So the new information is we now have our tourism director on board, according to Facebook, and I've got the post up here, in support of this. So we didn't have that information before. So now that we have the information that our own tourism director is in favor of this, I think that that greatly changes the outcome. And, you know, I think at a minimum we'd want to hear from our tourism director about how this is beneficial. I think that at least that is new information that the board should consider.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
I would just like to say that, you know, whether or not this board agrees with an item on the agenda and whether or not it would pass, I just don't like the idea that we are removing things from the agenda based on a vote of majority. I think that that's a slippery slope, and I don't think that we should be doing that, because everything and anything should be up for discussion, unless it's offensive, which I don't find it offensive necessarily. I just think that even if the item is not likely to pass, or even if the votes don't appear to be there based on previous discussions or previous items on the agenda, I think that stifling the discussion is never a good route.
I agree with that, Commissioner. Other than when we start running down paths to where we end up almost off of county business, I think we have to protect it and make sure that we're protecting the meetings and we don't go a few places we've been in the past. So following Robert's Rules of Order, if it's an item we've already heard, we have procedures we're supposed to follow. I'm going to do my best to do that and try to keep our conversations within the boundaries of what we're trying to discuss. Commissioner Smith, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking of superfluous motions, I would like to move to remove 6F1 from the agenda as well.
Pardon, sir?
Don't we have a motion on the floor?
I think we already voted on that last motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
since it's substantively different.
You want to make a new motion?
No. I think that we should allow our staff, Mr. Garvey, who posted on this, at least give, since he's weighed in on this, as since our last meeting. I think it would only be fair to hear his side of this, since this is completely new and he hadn't weighed in before. With your indulgence, I'd like to get his explanation for it.
Well, certainly. But just a comment, I rarely believe things I read on Facebook. I kind of learned that early on. If I believe most of those things, I'm not sure I'd get out of bed some mornings. So, but Mr. Garvey?
Madam Chair, may
Yes,
I
sir.
interject here? We've already discussed this. We voted it down. There's no point in bringing Mr. Garvey up here to discuss a motion that we've already defeated.
I don't think we should stifle opinion of fact, especially substantive fact. I mean, this would have been dropped had Commissioner Smith not posted
I think
this
I'm going to
stuff
let
on
Mr.
Facebook.
Garvey go ahead and comment, and then we're going to move forward. Just since your name came up, sir.
Sure. I was surprised when I saw the agenda item with that screen capture of a Facebook post that apparently I must have interacted with. I don't recall that. Don't typically engage in that type of Facebook post. Could not find it on my activity log, so I would not use that as an expression of my support for the quote that was in the agenda.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a question.
Sir, your light's not on. I didn't call you. We're going to go ahead and move on then to the next item. Commissioner Tobias, if you want to, I don't know. We'll have to get creative with that down the road. But resolution D, Commissioner Smith. I'm sorry, resolution C. And that's Commissioner Isnardi. Commissioner Isnardi, we do have a card on this one. And I'm guessing this is part of your resolution. Mr. Carson? Is that your gentleman?
Yes.
If you want to come forward, sir. Okay. Commissioner Isnardi.
Is Dave Trafton here too?
Good morning. We are Venture Crew 1715. We're venturing as part of Boy Scouts. It's ages 14 to 21. It's co-ed, and we focus on high adventure and leadership training. And the way we do our high adventures is we have a fundraiser that we do every year, and that we do it at the Vacate Airport. And it's been very successful. It's a great community event. It's a fun family night. It's a haunted trail that we do. And this year, well, we've done it for 4 years now. And this year we didn't think we were going to be able to do it because of Hurricane Irma. And the whole place was flooded. We couldn't even get out there because we're getting stuck. And so we were fixing to cancel it. But luckily the airport came through and the county came through. And they did a lot of work, which enabled us to hold the event. So we'd like to hand out some certificate of appreciations for that. And first of all, I'd like to recognize and thank Mr. Steve Borowski. He has been a great supporter of our crew. We're able to hold our meetings at the airport, and of course we camp at the woods across from the airport, and that's where we hold the event. So, Steve, here's a certificate of appreciation for all the support that you've given us. Thank you very much. This is Joshua, our crew president. He's going to help me here.
Also, we would like to thank David Trafton, the construction coordinator, for helping us get the road out there. So we could hold this event, and we had parking, and no cars got stuck in the mud, and we were able to get out there and get work done. So thank you, sir, and here's a certificate to you.
Okay, and one of the big players was Ranger Construction that David coordinated with to make this happen. I believe they donated a lot of material and man hours, so we really appreciate it. Is anybody from Ranger Construction here? Okay. All right.
We would also like to thank Brevard County Road and Bridge for helping get the road out there. Is there anybody from Brevard County Road and Bridge? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, and the last one is the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, the COP program. We have an officer who's just been fantastic. He's helped us in years past, but he's out there every night with his patrol car and helping us with traffic and security. Mr. Royce Stifelmeyer, but he wasn't able to make it this morning, but we really appreciate all the work that he's done for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to read this resolution, and it talks a little bit about how the events unfolded. Whereas on September 11, 2017, Hurricane Irma hit Brevard County, bringing 9 inches of rain and 130-mile-per-hour winds to the area, prompting Governor Rick Scott to declare a state of emergency for Brevard. And whereas debris management plans were put into action by Brevard County Solid Waste and remote management sites were identified during 1 in Grant, Valcaria, on the north side of Valcaria Road across from Habitat Golf Course. And whereas the constant torrential rains, along with the heavy equipment and trucks hauling debris, caused field conditions at the site to deteriorate rapidly, and by October 1st, the site had to be shut down because it was no longer usable for storm debris collection. And whereas it was brought to the attention of Solid Waste Project Manager David Trafton that the site was also unusable for an upcoming fundraiser event for the Venture Crew 1715 Boy Scouts of America. The fundraiser, Halloween Haunted Woods, has been held for the past 4 years at this site, and it is the basis of this troop's budget for the year. And whereas upon learning of the troop's situation, Trafton met with Brevard County Road and Bridge Construction Department Manager Bruce Black and his foreman Ricky Dix to develop a plan to expedite the improvements to the property. And whereas Trafton also contacted Pete Scholler of Ranger Construction Industries, Inc., to ask if he would collaborate with Brevard County on this project by donating asphalt millings to be used for the road-based material. Scholler gladly donated 25 truckloads of asphalt millings-based material. And whereas within 1 week of receiving the go-ahead from Solid Waste Director Yuri Rodriguez on the proposal for the reconstruction of the damaged site, crews from Brevard County restored the property to pre-hurricane condition by October 19th. And whereas Venture Crew 1715 Boy Scouts of America completed event preparations on schedule and hosted the event on October 21st, raising over $2,000. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby commend Brevard County Solid Waste, Brevard County Road and Bridge, and Ranger Construction Industries, Inc., for working together to provide a valuable community service. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 21st day of November, AD 2017. I want to make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Nardi, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you. Commissioner Smith, I believe this next resolution is yours, sir.
Yes, it is. Hunter Fitch. I'm going to read this proclamation, and then if you have any words, you're more than welcome to say your piece. Walk Out on Cancer Day Proclamation. American Cancer Society Walk Out on Cancer Day Proclamation for Brevard County. Whereas, Walk Out on Cancer Day is an activity of the American Cancer Society that unites the community together to beat our greatest rival, cancer. Walk Out on Cancer Day, we celebrate survivors, remembered loved ones lost, and take action for life-saving change while taking steps toward better health. Whereas money raised during Walk Out on Cancer Day of Brevard will help the American Cancer attack cancer in dozens of ways, each of them critical to achieving a world without cancer. From developing breakthrough therapies to building supportive communities, from providing empowering resources to deploying activists to raise awareness. Whereas Walk Out on Cancer Day celebrates the more than 15.5 million cancer survivors in the United States. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida does hereby proclaim November 28, 2017 as Walk Out on Cancer Day. And in Brevard, we encourage all citizens to help lead the fight for a world without cancer by participating in the Walk Out on Cancer Day activity of walking for at least 20 minutes on November 28th and donating to the American Cancer Society. I so move.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Congratulations, sir.
We'd like to thank you for being so supportive of our efforts. The American Cancer Society Brevard unit wanted to start this initiative so that we're not only raising funds and awareness for the cause, but we're also promoting a healthy lifestyle by taking time out of our day to walk and be active. Walk Out on Cancer Day is just a piece of our efforts here at Brevard. Through events such as Making Strides Against Breast Cancer and Relay for Life, our volunteers are working to raise awareness, promote healthy lives, and fund life-saving research, as well as local patient support services, including lodging and rides to treatments. We truly appreciate this proclamation and hope to see this cause grow every year. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. We're moving along to consent agenda. I don't have any cards on these items. Would anybody on the commission like to pull any items? Commissioner Barfield?
I don't care to pull one, but I'd like to vote no on 2A3.
2A3, yes, sir. Any other commissioners?
Yes, I would like to announce my opposition to 2A3 as well and to 2D6.
2D6, yes, sir.
But I'm not going to vote no on them.
Okay, we have that for the record, commissioners. I entertain a motion then to move forward with the consent agenda, except for the items mentioned by Commissioner Barfield and Smith on their opposing votes.
I'll second.
I need a first. I would love to.
Oh.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barfield, a second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0 with the notes by Commissioner Smith and Barfield. Moving into public comments. Okay. We have Karen Napkick. Ma'am, if you would like to come forward and state your name and your place of residence for the record, ma'am.
My place of residence is California. I am a disaster service worker for the federal government. My name is Karen Knapik with the United States Small Business Administration. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to come here to brief you quickly on the USSBA's efforts so far to date for Hurricane Irma relief. As of this morning, we have provided $652 million in low-interest loans, recovery loans for primarily homeowners, with just a small portion of that, only $35 million going to businesses in the state. I'm sorry, $50 million going to the businesses. In Brevard County, we've provided $35 million in low-interest loans for people to recuperate. Wanted to give you the opportunity I wanted to outreach with you. I'm thankful for the opportunity because we do have the disaster deadline for both FEMA and SBA coming up the 24th, November 24th. So if there are any constituents needing any outreach, we're doing everything we can to get back out there and make sure that we've addressed everyone's needs. I have some information here to hand out to you just to see if you have any flyers and fact sheets in case you have any need for that. But we wanted to let you know where we were, what level we're at, and that the deadline is coming up. And should there be any needed outreach, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll personally contact those people just to see if they need any more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toby, do you state your name and place of residence, sir, for the record?
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road, Melbourne. But it's not my residence, and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a safe one. And where did the money go? We have symptoms of things that we've been working on, and I appreciate all your help in the community for the roads, the river, the economy, the work on the EDC, the work on the CRAs. But yet the homeless are still, as I am. I have a home, but within 60 days of the fire, they put liens on my property. So here I stand, beating a dead horse. But if I don't try, then I've lost my opportunity already. The first step program in Volusia County is in effect right now, and I believe it's self-sustaining and in progress. And I think that we should look at other people's symptoms of their problems to help alleviate some of our homeless problems. And as of working for DOT and having to remove miles of homeless communities, these people have no place to live. They're causing more of a problem in jails and on the streets than they would if we could help them. Some people just need a little bit of help to get along in their way of life, and for whatever reasons, people end up in situations that they can't get out of themselves. And I'm not asking the county for money, and this is a community movement in Volusia County as well as Hillsborough and other places to help the homeless. And I appreciate everybody giving people love. My God is a God of love. And the next thing I'm going to work on, besides the homeless, is the freedom of religion. I have the right to worship a rock if I want to. That's my right in the constitutions, and these laws and interpretations, our original foundations are being destroyed and taken away. And if I want to believe in a rock, it's my right to express that. But I believe in a God of love, and His will is that not one soul be lost. And if you have not love, you have nothing. I love everybody, and excuse me for my way of defending myself, but I do it in a non-physical, harmful way to anybody, and it's only telling the truth. I'll be at Roberts Road catching missiles. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Just like, have a nice Thanksgiving. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Token. Moving into public hearings, we have 4A, County Manager. Do you want to lead us into this, sir?
Commissioners, I can handle that.
Okay.
Our Public Works Director is out today. The item 4A is a public hearing regarding a petition to vacate a unimproved right-of-way in the Koko area near the college campus. We have no plans for this right-of-way for public purposes, and we've received no objections to the petition.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield?
I have no problem with this, and I make a motion that we approve this.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Commissioner Nardi. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Mr. Denenhoff, are you with B also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Commissioners, item 4B is a public hearing to consider the possibility of allowing Road and Bridge to perform construction work on a public project that exceeds the limitation by state statute, subject to having a public hearing to find it in the public interest to do so. This project is known as the Cone Road Improvements Project. It's a multifaceted project with quite a few different benefits associated with it, including traffic safety, sidewalk capacity increases, water quality improvements for stormwater, also a septic to sewer element, which also helps the lagoon, and also provides an opportunity for a great opportunity for redevelopment potential for the area located south of Cone Road, east of Courtney Parkway, and north of the Merritt Island Airport. We had gone to bid with this project, and it exceeded our project estimates and budgets for it by quite a bit. We have since then considered a variety of ways that we could perhaps deal with it to bring it back into budget, and we think we've sort of hit upon a way to be able to do that. We have it outlined in option 3 that's included in the agenda report, and it essentially has the stormwater elements, sidewalks, and the maintenance of traffic elements of the project to be performed by Road and Bridge. And by so doing, we believe just on those elements of the project alone, we'll save over $500,000 in comparison to the bids that or the lowest bid that we received in the bidding process. We would further propose that we would then also go out to bid for the sanitary sewer elements of the project to a vendor or two vendors and give them opportunities to formulate bids for it that would be more focused on their aspect of work. And in talking with contractors after we went to bid, we believe we need to separate the projects a little bit. And then we'll get a more focused and hopefully more competitive bid. And to outline the options, your first option would be to direct staff to go ahead and award the bid and move forward with it as bid. But we would have to identify about $1.5 million of additional funding. Option 2 would be to reject all bids and tell us to go back out to rebid it. We don't really recommend that because we will have not made any changes to it, and we don't expect we'd get much of a different result. Option 3 would be to reject all bids and then find it in the public interest to have Road and Bridge perform a portion of this project and then go through the procurement process for the sanitary sewer elements of the project. There is always, we didn't put it in here, but option 4 is the other direction as given by the board.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barfield?
I'm very aware of the project, been involved in it all along, and this is truly one of the best redevelopment by the rules that you can do. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept option 3, reject all bids, and then find it in the public interest to have direct public works staff to construct the Cone Road improvements.
You have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Moving into unfinished business A, I believe this is your county manager.
Thank you. This item is being brought back to the board. It is the interlocal agreement with the City of Melbourne for the Babcock CRA. As you will recall, the board had previously authorized us to go back and renegotiate the terms that were tentatively proposed and agreed upon by the parties. Those negotiations have concluded, and the result of that is incorporated not only in the agreement before you, but outlined in the agenda request. We were able to accomplish some of what the board had requested since our last meeting, including keeping certain provisions that were in the prior agreement under Section 3B, letting the board continue the right, if it so chose, to basically provide oversight to the CRA. That was something that the board previously, when the initial ordinance provided for, that is in there. But most importantly, this is I believe, an extremely good partnership between the City of Melbourne and the board, where Babcock Street on the north side will be able to be repaved and upgraded, and the city will then take over. Not only are they going to accomplish that, they're going to take over the roadway after that. So I think it's very consistent with what the board was seeking to do, and the city as well, to get that road, which was one of the more, seriously roads that could use the repair. As an ancillary to that, there's also a variety of side roads on Apollo, Nassau Boulevard that are going to be positively impacted through this. Those roads are also going to be, during this 4-year period, with the 1-year extension of the CRA, are going to be adjusted. So I think it's very consistent with the board's intent to where we could enter into an agreement that addressed road and infrastructure issues with a CRA. So we're thankful for the board's consideration of this item. You'll also note in the as an exhibit that the city is moving forward as well, and they've already set 2 tentative public hearings to modify the CRAs to incorporate this and prioritize this as a project moving forward. And we're thankful for the county attorney's office and several staff members who were involved in negotiating with the city's attorneys to get this agreement in a format that is presented before the board today.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tabaya, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all your hard work, Mr. Abate. But I wanted to speak to the consistency. And I understand that you're working within guidelines, and you clearly have a fractured board when it comes to the disposition of CRAs. But we did have some common requests, and I would like to just break down those common requests to find out just how consistent this agreement is with the wishes of the board that we put forward. So I think one of them was, and this was a great suggestion on your part, was a one-page annual report template listed as Exhibit A. It was 1.5 pages that asked such wild questions as what are the boundary lines, who are the board members, and a balance sheet. Is that included in this interlocal agreement?
I don't believe that particular provision is in here.
Okay. Second, we asked for the CRAs to see if we could negotiate a time that they would sunset sooner than their current sunset. It's my understanding that not only is this CRA not sunsetting sooner, that we have actually increased the length of the sunset. Is that correct?
That would be correct. It's been increased by 1 year so that we could accomplish the Babcock.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
We asked, I believe, the third thing was no more bonding, and I think we gave the exception with the chairman's discretion with the parking project in Koko Beach, but I think that was the only exception that we went. Would this agreement allow for any reason, bonding of money?
It indicates that you cannot bond beyond the maturity date of the CRA's termination. In fact, they are going to be taking a intracity loan. Excuse me. They're going to be taking an intracity loan to fund that project. They're going to be loaning that money to the CRA. I believe that's what their intent is, but the specific language is in Section 10 of the proposed agreement.
But there will be. It doesn't matter where it's being loaned from. It's
right.
being loaned from the city resources.
Yeah, that's the only way they could.
There is a bond.
Yes, you're right. There's a loan.
Yes, sorry, a loan. I apologize.
Yes.
So help me. You mentioned consistency with what our requests were. There's no annual report. They're not sunsetting early. There's loans. Which one, help me here, and again, I understand you're working within parameters, and this is not a statement on any of the work you have done, so let me be very clear about that. I appreciate all the work you've done. How is it consistent? Where is it consistent with the wishes of, so we got three, which was the one that I missed?
I believe it's very consistent with the most important wish of the board that I understood, which was to use CRA funding, if possible, to provide infrastructure and assist with road. And I think this does this in a most admirable way, and I wish I could get every agreement in similar terms to accomplish what I think was an underlying objective of the board. So that's what we tried to do in this particular case.
Again, thank you for all your work on behalf of the county. I realize that this has been a very difficult task, and I think you've worked within the parameters as hard as you can. And again, thank you for bringing this product back to the commission.
Commissioner Isnardi?
You took the words out of my mouth, and that was what I was going to remark on early on in the discussion when I hit my light after Commissioner Tabaya, was that many board members expressed, and I know I was one of them, the need for these CRAs to start contributing to the infrastructure as opposed to facades and other projects that don't really benefit the entire city but benefit private business. So I commend staff for working hard on this. I know a lot of people don't see the meetings and the negotiations that go on behind closed doors, but I know Mr. Abate and county staff worked very hard to ensure that, we could keep our promise to residents and businesses on North Babcock Street that we would finally get this road done. And I think using CRA funds to do that is fantastic. And I think, if we're stuck with these CRAs, and I'm no fan, this is the kinds of projects I want to see them doing. Now, whether their city, as a city, chose to loan them the money to finish the road projects, that's between their board and their city. And the city is making the loan to the CRA. It's not the CRA incurring more debt. So I just want that clear and for the record. So I am thankful, I am grateful, and I didn't work nearly as hard as you guys did on staff to get this done with Melbourne. So the extra year, as far as allowable for the CRA to ensure that the infrastructure will be completed, and so that the city of Melbourne may even complete more roads close to Babcock Street, is fantastic. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. One comment before we vote. I just want to remind us that when we had the CRA workshop, I think the consensus of the board was we sent you forward to try to get an interlocal agreement with a time certain.
My light's not coming on.
Oh, it's not, is it?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
Just so you know, I want to speak.
Okay. And so, as far as that being your marching orders, you've done very well. And then we had a conversation up here of a wish list of things that we would like to get put into it. So, sir, I appreciate you doing this. And I just have to make a comment to Commissioner Isnardi. I've heard you since the beginning of time. You were trying to champion getting this road completed. And so I think this is great, a very creative thing. And I'm very happy for your district that you got this done. Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I would just like to add a few things, and I thank the Melbourne City Manager for being here and for his hard work and diligence. I think it was back in March when I had you and Mayor Meehan into my office, and we kind of outlined and put the framework of this agreement together, and I'm very happy to see that we've gotten to where we are. I'm also very much in favor of it. It provides an end date to CRAs, which I think is important. That was my primary concern. My biggest problem with CRAs has been, ever since I first learned about them, was that they seem to be a never-ending entity, and they just didn't ever go away. And so now we've provided a means for this Melbourne CRA to go away. It provides for resurfacing Babcock, which everybody knows how desperately that's needed. Saves the county money going forward because the county will no longer be responsible for this section of Babcock. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. The county gets the road fixed, the city gets the road fixed, and we save money in the process. And I think at the end of the day, at the end of this, is everybody comes out a winner. So that's why I second it, and I'm very happy for Commissioner Isnardi that you're getting your road fixed.
Commissioner Isnardi.
I forgot to thank Councilwoman Debbie Thomas, because she was my contact over there. I mean, Tim Thomas and Paul Alfrey have always, been in contact, but, and through this process, I've had the chance to get to know her, and I appreciate her efforts and coming to my office and talking and mulling this through. So thank you, Debbie, if you're listening. I appreciate your help.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Tobias in opposition. We are moving forward into new business. Item 6A.
Item 6A is a...
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll take a little break here. Come on up, sir. We'd love to hear from you.
Just want to say thank you very much. This is bricks and mortar and asphalt at its best. Thank you to the county manager, the attorney, and Mr. Danghoff. This has been a great effort to work together to get this thing done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike McNeese, Melbourne City Manager.
6A1 is a request for the board to consider the special magistrate's recommendation to reduce the accrued fines for a violation at 2775 Brockett Road, Mims, for code enforcement case 13 CE 00760 from $4,435 down to $2,205, and direct staff to prepare and execute the release and satisfaction of lien upon receipt of the payment. This code enforcement case went to the special magistrate originally in December 2013. The fine accrued to the maximum And the respondent, Mrs. Bray, petitioned the special magistrate back in September for a reduction, and we're providing that today for the board's consideration. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. I was able to ask you some questions, and she's worked with you, been very respectful, and there might have been a complication because she had a name change and didn't get notice. So I'm not in agreement with moving it all the way down to her request, because I think it should cover our cost, because, you know, we are aware there's code violations all this time, and we probably should have taken care of our property. So whatever the board's consideration is, but if we move it to $1,868, that would totally cover our county cost, and I think that would be a good motion.
All
Anybody?
right, I'll step out there.
Okay.
I'll make a
Commissioner
motion that we reduce the fine to $1,868 as the actual cost.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, vote aye. Aye. Oh, Commissioner Tobias, I'm sorry.
I just had a brief question. The $2,205, that was from the special magistrate. That was the special magistrate's recommendation?
Yes, sir, it was.
So you want to decrease that amount to the actual cost of the county's time, is that correct?
Yes, sir. She had requested like $800, but I don't think that would be...
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the request of the $2,000, so it was off her request of $800.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. My vote still stands. I just wanted to understand.
Okay. All in favor, aye? Aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 6A2.
Item 6A2 is a request for the Board of County Commissioners to approve and authorize the chairman to sign a binding development plan for Morris Mobile Home Park, which the zoning change was heard by the board back in August 3rd of 2017.
Yes, sir. And you said if they would have had this turn in before Friday, it would have just ran through consent. So this is just basically a paperwork item. So I'm good with it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Isnardi. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, new business, item F1. This is yours, Commissioner Tobias.
Before we go there, I think Commissioner Smith had preceded it with a motion.
Yeah, I made a motion to remove this from the agenda. We have no legal basis to censure a person from the public. In fact, we don't even have a censure ordinance for this county. So this is a superfluous motion.
Okay.
Resolution.
My question would be, on Robert's rules, what would the rule violate? Would be the question of the motion.
We don't have a censure ordinance, and I would venture to say we have no authority to censure someone in the public for comments that they made. This is still a free country. Mr. Ridenauer and everybody else has a right to say whatever they want, regardless of whether you like it or not.
County Attorney, will you weigh in, sir?
Commissioner, it's correct that we don't have a censure ordinance, and I think in the context of the advisory body, which is the Tourist Development Council, the only action that the board is really able to take is to remove volunteer or members of advisory boards if there's a cause for doing that, which I don't see this being a cause for removal. It's something that the board would have to look at and determine.
So the motion to remove it is appropriate, sir?
You can remove things from the agenda if the board votes to do that, yes.
Okay.
But to be clear, that motion to remove it would be to waive Robert's Rules of Order. Is that correct?
Yeah. Remember, the Robert's Rules, according to the board operating procedures, are just guidelines. So the board is authorized by the very last provision on those rules to waive it anytime they so choose. And we have always construed waivers to mean 3 votes. If you vote on something that's inconsistent with Robert's rules, you've waived the Robert's rules.
Commissioner Isnardi.
Well, I wouldn't be in support of this ordinance for various reasons that, depending on how the direction of this board moves forward, I can explain if there's a discussion. I am adamantly opposed to any board, commissioner, or by vote, the removal of things on the agenda, no matter how ridiculous we think they are, no matter how unrelated to county business that it may be. I am adamantly opposed, so that's why I won't support removal of an item. However, if this does go to the board for discussion, I'll explain my reasons after, because I don't agree with the resolution. However, I think that we should be allowed to discuss and vote on it.
Commissioner Barfield?
Here's my question. If there's no ordinance, if there's no law that we have to vote this that they're in violation of, or that anything related to it, how can we even vote on it? I don't understand, Mr. Knox. I mean, to me, it'd be mute.
Well, it's been brought before the board by a commissioner. As I understand it, there's a motion pending to remove it from the agenda. That's appropriate. In terms of what I said about dealing with members of the advisory boards, the board has the authority to remove people who are on those advisory boards, but only for cause. This, in my mind, this is a past, the events described in this particular resolution are past tense, and maybe were something that could have been considered before somebody was appointed, but that's not where we are. Those people are on the boards at this point, and removal for those reasons is not appropriate at this point. So there's no legal basis for removing or censuring anybody in this county right now.
Can I ask a question? I don't mean to be out of order.
No, certainly.
Does this ordinance that I missed or did this resolution call for cause for removal?
No, I don't think so. The board can certainly disagree with that.
That's why I didn't know why we were talking about it. I mean, I didn't know if I missed something in the resolution.
Okay. Board?
Well, we have a motion. Did we get a second for removal? If we didn't, then we need to move on to the resolution.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted a clarification as to what.
Mr. Tobias, you may have the floor.
Can you repeat that motion that Commissioner Smith just was asking for clarification? What his motion was? Was it to waive Robert's rules and throw the item from the agenda? Is that correct?
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the motion is to waive Robert's rules on this item, sir, and to move forward with a motion to remove it?
Yes.
Yes, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Okay, that motion dies for a lack of second. Commissioner Tobias, is that your new light, or trying to get my attention on the last one?
If that's it, then I'd go, unless you have any other business, I'd continue with the resolution, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. I just, as we're moving forward, though, I would just ask that we would be careful that we're not doing anything to harm a member of the public with personal items because of disagreement in our opinion. So I would just ask this board to just be aware of that as we're moving forward, that we don't run the risk of stopping freedom of speech from the public at large on items that they make comments on from what they believe in their heart. And sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And certainly this does not seek to do this at all. Every board member at one time or another has stressed the importance of having a positive relationship with our delegation. And labeling, having one of our advisory council members label the action of one of our delegation members as, quote, criminal, certainly negatively impacts that relationship. I've spoken directly with that member, and it was not received positively, nor was there an apology or an explanation tendered. And I don't believe that that provides for good discourse between county and state government, and that is why I proceeded with this resolution. It was not on policy, It was on comments made by one of our board members or about the actions of one of our state representatives. So, censure of Jim Ridenauer, Chairman of the Tourism Development Council. Whereas the board, Brevard County Tourism Development Council, serves to advise and assist the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners in making important decisions in the best interest of all Brevard County citizens, and whereas Commissioner Jim Barfield, a member of the Tourist Development Council, serving as a shining example of the professionalism expected on that council, upon which other members are to be compared, and whereas it is imperative that the Board of County Commissioners attempt to maintain a positive relationship with its delegation to the Florida Legislature, and whereas labeling a representative's efforts to serve Brevard County citizens and visitors to this county as, quote, criminal is incredibly detrimental to this relationship. And whereas Jim Ridenauer, Chairman of the Brevard County Tourism Development Council, labeled Representative Randy Fine's proposal to give local government more flexibility in allocating tourist development tax revenue, House Bill 585, as, quote, criminal in an article published in Florida Today on November 9, 2017. And whereas linking a representative of the Florida House of Representatives to criminal conduct is an extremely serious matter, and whereas Representative Fine is, in fact, attempting to preserve the health and well-being of Brevard County citizens and visitors, and its right and obligation as an elected representative of Brevard County citizens by giving the county the authority to allocate funds to prevent human waste from being drained into the Indian River Lagoon, and whereas it is incumbent upon members of the Tourist Development Council to be understanding and responsible leaders of Brevard County and protect and promote the health and safety of the citizens and visitors. And whereas Jim Ridenauer has failed to meet his obligations to be an example of responsible member of the tourism industry within Brevard County, and whereas as general manager of Residence Inn located at 1430 South Babcock Street, Melbourne, Florida 32901, Chairman Ridenauer has managed a hotel which has been a habitual offender of Health Code of State of Florida, Chapter 381, Florida statutes, accumulating 18 violations over the past 5 years. And whereas such violations have included repeatedly allowing, quote, heavy accumulation of mold-like substances, unquote, on drink dispensers, and whereas additional violations include storing food on the floor, and whereas employees of the Residence Inn Melbourne mishandled caustic chemicals within the restaurant kitchen, thereby creating a health hazard, and whereas other threats to citizens and visitors' health include failing to maintain food at safe temperatures, which are necessary to prevent disease, and whereas while the hotels of other members of the Tourist Development Council and its committee members have even had more citations, such as Tom Hermanson, whose company Ocean Partners Hospitality LLP has been cited 192 times for violations such as bed bugs being discovered within the past 5 years at a Best Western Ocean Beach Hotel and Suites in Koko Beach, Days Inn Port Canaveral in Koko Beach, Hampton Inn Breakfast Bar in Koko Beach, and Courtyard Marriott in Koko Beach. The chairman of the Tourist Development Council must be held to higher standards, and whereas it is the responsibility of the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners to hold its employees and advisors accountable for actions which are determined to be detrimental to the county. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida does hereby censure Jim Ridenauer of Brevard County Tourist Development Council for failing to meet his obligation as chairman. Done, ordered, and adopted in this regular session, this 21st day of November, AD 2017. I'd like to make that motion, Madam Chair.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Motion fails for a lack of second. Commissioner Isnardi?
I just want to say that, you know, it's okay that Commissioner Tabaya brought this item and he feels strongly about Jim Ridenauer expressing his First Amendment right, rather as a member of the TDC board, an appointed member by a commissioner on this board. You know, I think given the fact that he's retired lieutenant colonel of our military, and given the fact that he's, you know, a committed member, he's not a personal friend of mine, but I can tell you that he's got a reputation in this county as being a doer and an exceptional volunteer in the community. We're not always going to agree with everything everybody says, either in the newspaper and social media and otherwise, but I am adamantly opposed to this very public embarrassment to him, and we're taking two issues and we're completely making them a combined issue, which they are not, which is the health of our Indian River Lagoon versus someone's opposition to how tourist development taxes are spent. So I think this is a waste of government's time, and I think it's a shame that we're trying to attack this man's character because he doesn't happen to agree with the representative. I could pull the over 100 Facebook posts in the past probably 14 to 21 days from Mr. Fine where he accuses a member of this commission of giving project money away to their friends, and that in turn would be accusing a commissioner of a crime, would it not be? So would that be accusing us of being criminals as well? Again, that's a huge stretch because Mr. Fine is passionate about the lagoon just as Mr. Ridenour is passionate about the tourism industry. I think getting petty and going down this rabbit hole of insanity is just a waste of our time. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Isnardi. Commissioner Barfield?
I've known Mr. Ridenour for, I can't remember how many years. He's a military hero. He's a retired veteran. He does so much in the community for economic development, but also helping all kinds of community organizations. And to slam him like this is a travesty. I'll tell you that. And the other thing is this. Kind of a humorous thing. My first job out of college, I worked as a health inspector, sanitarian for Brevard County. And I know what inspections are like, and I know what the reports are like. And you can take the wording out of those very carefully and make it sound much worse than it really is. So when you pull these things out, you need to look at the details. And I think it's just no reason to even put anything like that into this. To try to hurt someone's reputation this way is just uncalled for, and I just think it's appalling. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say one brief statement. I think this is a despicable attempt to slander a very decent and honorable man, and I don't know the reasoning for this venomous attack, but I think it's disgusting.
Thank you, sir. My comment, I do believe in people have the right for freedom of speech, and I would fight to keep that right for everybody to have. But on that note, I think as a government we have a little bit more responsibility. And I don't want people to be afraid to have a comment because they're going to go through a public lashing from the government, especially when the government's under so much ridicule these days. I think we need to start operating in a higher standard. The newspaper headlines today was all these sexual accusations for people that are serving in the communities and in the federal level. And I think government's just got to set a higher standard of some kind of civility and communication openness and a way to operate that's not quite so embarrassing out there to the public opinion. People out there don't even like government anymore because of the behavior we're doing. So on that note, too, I also want to agree with a couple of the comments I've heard here. I really want to thank Mr. Ridenour for all of his work, and you know, he volunteers to do this, and he's a smart guy, and he's helped bring a lot of good economy into Brevard County. And even Mr. Hermanison, just a wonderful, smart fellow, good people in the community, and I just want to show my support to all that they do also. And you know, and if you went into my home, you'd probably find a little mold around my bathtub now and then too. I mean, there's just things that happen in life, and that doesn't mean it's a good business or a bad business. So I would never want to hurt somebody's personal life or their business because they have a difference of opinion. That probably should be debated out in a public forum, and so that would be a good thing possibly down the road. So anyways, that's just my thought on it. So I'd like to go ahead and move forward now with item F2. City Manager, is that you with the signature plates?
That's right. This is just an administrative matter, so until we can get the new signature plates to use the current one.
Do you need a vote on that, sir?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make the motion. Entertain a motion for someone to approve. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Do I second? Commissioner Barfield, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, item F3, this is an item that I brought, and the main thing for this is, if, I know you've all had time to read through it, is just my main request is that if we send something out personal, making a demand on an entity or a person, or that we're implying that it would be the consensus of the county commission, I would just like to make sure that we have a disclaimer on those items that we sent out. Any comments from the commission? Commissioner Isnardi?
Yeah, I was reading through this resolution, and not to be a naysayer, and I'm sure your intentions are pure, but I think it's pretty specific on what's required, and I think that if cities have a hard time understanding that correspondence is coming from a particular district office versus the entire Board of County Commissioners, then I question their qualifications to serve in the city that's either complaining or the city that may take issue with it. I mean, we were all elected to our own districts, and I think to have to put a disclaimer on our letterhead when we send out a letter sort of cheapens the office and makes us look like a bunch of school children.
I respect your opinion, ma'am, but that's so different than mine. Commissioner Smith?
Did my light work?
I thought you saw you pushing the button.
Yeah, no, I was, and I was waving too.
Okay.
I respect Commissioner Isnardi's comments, and while I largely agree with them, I think we have an exception on this commission at this time where we have one commissioner that likes to grandstand, one commissioner that likes to push his weight around and act as though he is the commission, and he ruffles an awful lot of feathers in the county and in the cities by doing that. And I don't think it's a question of the body's misunderstanding that is coming from one person. I think it's just a point of order that we need to make sure that when we address cities and other elected bodies, that they know the request or the order or the information is coming from an individual or the commission as a whole. And I just think this ordinance serves that purpose. I don't think it's a big deal, but I think it serves that purpose, and I think it's necessary.
Thank you. Commissioner Tlaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank you for bringing your first ordinance here to the board. Always appreciate debate. I just had some comments on it. I noticed when I was reading over this that it presupposed, when you drafted it, it presupposed you as the chairman. So my question would be either the sunshine was broken or you had some good intuition as what the vote would be. I'd like to go on and say that you had provided quite a lot of criticism to myself for bringing items to the board at the last minute, and my office received this at 2:45 p.m. on Friday. Further, you brought issues to the board about using the attorney's time without getting the general consent of the commission. I don't recall this ever coming before us or you making this asking the attorney's office to draft it. Regardless, I support this ordinance. And let me tell you why I support it. Because as you added the letters that I sent to Titusville that were written by me, they did not have the county seal. They were written in the first person. They were personally signed by me. And Titusville wasn't able to, the council wasn't able to make the determination that that was from a single member instead of the board altogether. I think that this lends some strength to your argument as we move forward. Though I do have a couple questions about the ordinance before I go into my conclusion. Many times my office gets requests from Waste Management about trash pickup. So, who does a great job, let me be very clear. Maybe they missed something or asking for an extra pickup. So if my office is to contact Waste Management and ask for a pickup, that would meet the definition, I think, a demand Would my office need to include that disclaimer on that communication? Another one would be you had a Facebook post where you said, help Brevard County try to win $20,000 towards a local park. Your vote counts. Follow the link, like, and share. So you're making a demand here of citizens to, I don't disagree with it, but get involved. But would that Facebook post then need this disclaimer that you have there? So I'd like answers to that, but in conclusion, because I don't want to have to push the light again, I will work within the guidelines, but by no means will this stop me from continuing to do my job. I want to be very clear. It was County Commission District 3's office that found the mismanagement of the Palm Shores CRA, which cost taxpayers $100,000 a year. So call it grandstanding, call it finding $100,000, which is more than I can say from any other office. And again, I said office, not me. It's because the staff works extremely diligent in order to find this stuff. So when I see misappropriation of taxpayer funds, which I have in the past, I will not hesitate to continue to contact those responsible parties in 12-point font, 18-point font, 24-point, bold and italicized and highlighted. But if that makes you feel more comfortable in those communications, I have absolutely no problem. But I want to follow this. So if you could let me know how the ordinance would deal with the waste management example that I mentioned, as well as the Facebook, so I can follow this as diligently and as closely and as by the spirit of the letter of the law or this ordinance as possible. I would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Tobias, I wouldn't want to be able to stop what you'd like to do. That's not the intent of this, and I thank you for understanding that. County Attorney, I didn't even think about the wastewater issue. I know that would be a little encumbersome, but as far as the Facebook, I would agree that we should probably put a disclaimer on our Facebook items like that if we're going to make those types of requests, sir. I do agree with that. County Attorney, how would we fix the, like dealing with business in our districts like that, just trying to help our citizens?
Well, first of all, this is a draft, so
okay.
It's always subject to being changed. Secondly, certainly you can limit it to what kinds of communication you're talking about. If you're talking about communications with other governments, you can limit it to that. If you're talking about communications with corporations that have contracts with the county, it could apply to that. That's all open to debate and refinement as you go along. I think the Commissioner's made a good point in terms of getting down to helping out constituents. Okay, so maybe we can get that written into the draft so that doesn't encumber the work of us in our districts doing those types of items. That certainly can be modified. Okay. Commissioner Isnardi, yes, ma'am.
Could I just ask, Chairwoman, is this in response to a complaint from a municipality or from somebody who says they didn't know something came from a district office as opposed from the board?
Well, in the district, in our district, when they received it, typically when they receive letters, they're considering it was the Brevard County Commission, and that's the first call that they gave me is like, what's Brevard County doing? We weren't ready for this, didn't hear anything ahead. And I said, no, I didn't know anything about it. So I understand that. And it's not so much that they're very smart there, so it's not a lack of those types of items. But I think just getting more clarity on our communications probably just a good idea. I know up here sometimes we have a disclaimer of some things before we move forward, but this I think will help us to negate maybe future lawsuits as a commission as we move forward. And you guys do know we have an awful lot of power up here, and I think we just need to maybe think about these things ourselves as we're doing things in our community. Oh, and I did want to make one more statement. That's the first time I actually saw that they put me in as chair too, sir. I think my staff helped out with that, and they might have been a little hopeful. And I think the consensus of what I've been hearing for the past 6 months is vice chair does move to chair, so I'm guessing what that conclusion came from. No, sir, there was no break in sunshine law.
Okay,
but Commissioner Isnardi.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish. the reason why I ask is because my office has not received any complaints or concerns, and where I get a little concerned is, again, now here comes the legal questions, and what kind of disclaimers are we going to have to put on updates on reconstruction or paving in our district, and communication, simple email communication, and I think we're just adding a little bit of bureaucracy because a commission office may be making a person or two uncomfortable. Again, we get a lot of emails, and my staff can attest to that, and that has never been an issue or complaint. And we get a lot of complaints, for different things. So I think that this actually probably exposes us more if a commission office or a individual within the office fails to have the disclaimer, or if we're posting innocently somewhere, are we going to be I don't know. I just think it's silly. I think it's...
Or you can just put the disclaimer on everything. I mean, it might not be something bad to put on all of our correspondence we put out, that it's our own individual opinions, not the consensus of the county commission.
But isn't that a given that we're all elected by our own districts?
No, obviously not. Over the last scenario we just went through, and City of Titusville, they were calling special meetings at 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to get things to us in a timely manner, because they weren't sure of it. And, in all fairness, they don't know any of us up here other than myself.
And they probably should get to know it if they don't know the difference between getting a letter from the board.
Well, maybe, but I'm not going to chastise them because of what they had to go through that situation. So, and when I worked on the city council, we weren't to just send out information on letterhead without putting a disclaimer on it also. So it's just something I've been used to through the years. But I still think this is a good idea. I think it's just clarification. And these are just when we make a type of demand, or that we're just maybe making maybe just making it sound like it's coming from the commission. I think this would just be a safety for us also, and I don't think I would mind putting it on my items either. Mr. Barfield?
Yes, I have to explain a situation we had for a prior county commissioner. I had another county commissioner send a letter to all the residents of Savannah's golf course telling them that the county was going to abandon their golf course and they would have to start paying for that. Imagine the phone calls on a Friday afternoon in my office got from that. Now, when you look at sending letters out, you need to be very clear. And when it goes to people that really never deal with the county, never have anything to do, and you get an official letter from a county commissioner, it's very important that it's very clearly stated. So that's just one incident that we had, and that's a true life story. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you. Mr. Knox.
Yeah, I was just going to say something before you said it about the tradition, unbroken in 24 years I've been here, is that the vice chairman takes the chairmanship. So I assumed that was going to happen in this case. That's why your name appears at the bottom of the ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Actually, I didn't see it till right then.
It is a draft.
Kind of got me tickled when you said it. Yes, and we can do some work on it. Commissioner Tobias, did you have your light on or to go away?
I just had a couple follow-ups with things that you've mentioned since, just for clarification. First of all, when my office sent that letter my office didn't need to, but in fairness, I think it's important to disclose that my office also sent your office a copy.
You did, sir. I got it. I know. I got it 5 days after they did, though. I know. It's not your fault.
The U.S. Postal Service on that one, it was sent the exact same time.
Not your fault.
All the communications, again, I didn't have to, but since it was in yours, I thought it due diligence. My concern reading this, and something else to look at, this is something else when it comes to drafting. If I send an Eagle Scout a congratulatory letter and it says, or any other form of correspondence, it would look pretty horrible saying, you worked really hard, congratulations on everything. This is by, what would it say? This correspondence is not being sent on the Brevard County Board of Commissioners. Any views, opinions, and other matters expressed represented. I like you, but the rest of the county commission probably doesn't. So if we can clarify that a little bit more.
Sure, I really meant to try to do that. I probably
and I know these things are, when you get forward.
Yes, sir.
And then finally, you mentioned the lawsuits, and I'm not aware of any. Are you aware of any lawsuits that
No, sir,
are pending?
I'm not.
or
I'm
current?
just, if we got a really rogue commissioner at some time that did something, this would maybe protect us if we just have some kind of constraints moving forward. As you know, we're going to have new commissioners through the years. And when you start recognizing you have a potential problem, I think it might be time to try to come up with a potential solution, like you did through the ethics ordinances we worked through in the past.
So can, with your indulgence, can we?
Please, sir.
Can in the 24 years, have we had any legal issues with a commissioner's office, and can you tell us about the possibility of that happening in the future?
Well, I can't think of any offhand that we've had in 24 years where a commissioner has caused a legal issue. That's not to say that it hasn't happened. I just can't think of one right now. It's conceivable that it could. I mean, if commissioners are not careful about what they say, sometimes it can cause issues because they represent the commission as well as themselves. So it's possible, yes. And I think what the commissioner is trying to accomplish is to make sure that if there's any, and I think it came up in the context of dealing with other governmental entities specifically, if there's any correspondence that's going to go to those governmental entities making any kind of demand, or which is what this is related to, then to avoid any confusion that it came from the commission or it came from the individual commissioner, she's asking for a disclaimer, and I think that's reasonable.
A quick follow-up, if you would.
Sir.
And I'm not very skilled on the when it comes to sunshine or requests of government documents. How would, I thought a request for public documents had to potentially be anonymous if that was the case? What is the legal ramifications by forcing potentially a member of this commission with a disclosure with state statute allowing the anonymity of requests for public documents?
There's nothing in this ordinance that says that a commissioner has to send a request for a public document under his or her name. I mean, you can still do that. You can still call up and ask for public records.
It would be kind of obvious you're not representing the commission at that point. Yeah.
One more question.
Commissioner Znardi.
I mean, I would support this if it limited it to, say, communication between government, like us being a government representative and, say, another government. Again, because, like, I don't want to be in the situation where I'm writing my neighbor a reference letter for college and I've got to have a disclaimer on the bottom or something because I'm promoting him to a school. So I would be supportive if this limited it just to communication between governmental bodies.
I think that would fix it. My intent, that's why I put in the word demand, so that we weren't having to do that on congratulation letters. And I definitely didn't mean to mess with the wastewater items, because that's a lot of work too. So I would be comfortable with that. Mr. Knox, could we fix this so that it would say when dealing with other governmental entities? Okay. And do we do a motion on this now, sir? Do we bring it back? How do we do this?
I think the agenda item calls for a advertising of the ordinance. So we would advertise the title with the modifications that you've indicated today.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion on that?
So move.
With the modifications?
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Smith. Is that with modifications, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
A second by Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Commission. And I guess we're ready for our comments. And oh, I do have a public comment. Thank you, Commissioner Znardi.
Oh, wait, that's at 7. Yeah.
Okay. Christina Maxon. If you'd state your name and place of residence for the board, ma'am.
My name is Christine Madsen. My residence is Indian Harbor Beach. I work for Brevard County Fire Rescue. I'm sure you've seen us here talking to you about our staffing and wage problems. Today I came into work on time, usual, and I looked through my county email first thing in the morning, and I received an email displacing me out of my station that I've been with Koko Beach Fire Station for 5 years. I've been on the job for 18 years, and I've been taking care of the residents of Koko Beach. They're going to take me out and put an EMT into my position with a lieutenant medic. Snug Harbor, who is a county, not city, we run by ourselves. Last shift, I just ran a call. It took the engine crew 10 minutes to get on scene to a lady who was actively seizing. And there's no way that a paramedic who administers medications, establishes airways, and assesses a patient, that I could have had an EMT partner on that call. I had to push drugs on this patient. Luckily, my lieutenant was a medic, and both of us were able to secure the patient's airway and stop her seizures, but the engine crew did not show up for 10 minutes. Being left out of this station, this is family for me. Koko Beach, I've loved these residents, and I take it personal, and that's why I'm here today. I really hope that this can be reconsidered somehow, the staffing of our rescues, because the staffing on the rescues are now dropped down to one paramedic who does all the advanced care. An EMT does basic care. You can't have an ER doctor render advanced care with a secretary standing next to him. If you see in an emergency room, there's nurses, there are other respiratory therapists, but there is not that on these rescues right now. And I know the union has been up here fighting for us, but it's really getting bad, and it's getting scary out here, especially for us senior people that are here, and we are leaving. We are leaving. And I had a lady who was having a cardiac arrest, and my EMT didn't know how to get to the hospital because he's from South Florida. We need to stop this. We really do. Somebody's going to get hurt, and somebody's going to lose a loved one over this. Wages, yes, and we need to treat, management needs to treat the employees better. I got an email. They could have given me a phone call or a meeting or something, but I had to take the shift off today because I'm just torn apart that they decided to do this through an email. And I really render that the citizens are at a risk with the decisions being made on this board, and I don't know if they understand that you guys are staffing these rescues this way. I have more to say, but I ran out of time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just consider what our union is telling you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Call management, our management, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff reports. County Manager Abate.
No reports.
Thank you, Commissioner Barfield. I'm sorry, Mr. Knox.
No report, Madam.
Okay. I must have known. Commissioner Barfield.
Well, I'm bringing up an issue that it really saddens me to have to bring this up. And it has to do with our Emergency Operations Center, the planning we have going, the process we're going through. But before I get started, let me give a background. Since I've been in office, since I was elected in 2014, one of my big issues is what are we going to do with the EOC? It was built in the early 60s. We all know how bad it is. So I've been working to get the EOC, along with other commissioners, with Kimberly Prosser, to try to get this in the state budget. Well, last year, through working with our Brevard County delegation, we did that. And we got money in to do the design. It was started with the legislator, our local legislators. They helped push this forward. It got passed through the House, got passed through the Senate, went to the budget, got to the governor, and the governor finally approved it after vetoing it for I don't know how many different years. So we ended up receiving a grant for the design, and that would be competed to find the right A&E firm, architectural engineering firm, to do that. And I understand the process of how you have to do proposals. And in my business, I work in government proposals and contracts. I've probably done hundreds and hundreds of proposals. And it's a very pure process where from beginning to end, It's very tightly controlled because, let's face it, in government, when you start issuing contracts, it's one of those things that are the easiest to have cronyism. It's too easy to give money away. Well, in the process of the design, the selection, going by the procurement process, which Brevard County has, which is excellent, and it's run by people who are certified to do these procurement activities. But a selection committee was established. It consists of 3 voting members and 1 non-voting member, which is on staff, who handles all the administrative side and is usually the point of contact. These members on this one include John Denninghoff, Assistant County Manager, Frank Abati, the County Manager, and then Kimberly Prosser, who's the Director of the Emergency Operations Center. The request for proposal, which is a solicitation document, RFP, it clearly explains, it goes out to the bidders, and it clearly explains the Emergency Operations Center project, the rules, the terms and conditions, and all the other things that go with that. Along with that, all firms were notified that all communication must be made to an official point of contact named in the procurement document. All communication relative to the EOC procurement with any other staff or the county commission is prohibited from the time the RFP was issued until contract award. This process is to prevent any external political impact on it, where anybody else tries to make any changes to it to try to have input while this process is going on. It has to stay pure. Well, we as a commission, in order to expedite the award of the contract, we voted to authorize the county manager to negotiate and award the contract once this selection committee comes up with their decision. We voted for that. That would make it go much faster. The EOC procurement had been advertised and proposals were received. Upon receipt of the proposals, the selection committee evaluated and scored the proposals per the solicitation to select a contractor. Well, on October 27, 2017, during the procurement process, Mrs. Prosser received a letter on State of Florida letterhead from State Representative Randy Fine in support of one of the bidders for the EOC Design Award. Again, Mrs. Prosser is on the selection committee and is the most knowledgeable of the EOC. And I've got copies of that letter, and I'll have them put one up there too. I'll pass these out to the board. Give me one back so I can read it. I can read it. I'd like to read the letter. I'd like to read the letter to you, and each one of the commissioners have a copy, and you see it back behind here. It's dated October 27, 2017. Now, this is to recommend a specific company. In the letter, I'm not going to say who the company is. You can see it because they are a very reputable, very good company. It's to Mrs. Kimberly Prosser. Dear Ms. Prosser, I'm writing you today in support of the bidder team's candidacy for the Design Award competition for the new Brevard County Emergency Operations Center. I'm not qualified to opine this company's qualifications for the job. I leave that to you, and have no wish to influence your decision as you make those determinations. That said, if there are multiple equivalent options that you're considering, all other things being equal, I would ask that you give special consideration to this to the local option. The bidders team has a unique impact economically on our county as the only prime candidate based in Brevard. This company directly employs nearly 200 people. In fact, according to the Economic Development Commission of Florida Space Coast report dated October 20th, 2017, this company's operations are estimated to have a total economic impact on Brevard County of more than $49.3 million annually, supporting 564 jobs and generating over $41.3 million in local income. The company has over 50 years of capabilities in Brevard and has also shown a charitable spirit for civic project participation in the community. I wish you the best of luck as you make your selection. Regards, Randy Fine, State Representative, District 53, on state letterhead. A few things in the letter. One's quote, "I have no wish to influence your decision," is in this letter. Well, why send the letter? That's the question. And then he says, that said, and it says also, "I would ask that you give special consideration." Well, only one company is recommended here, and it's stated 5 times the name of that company. So it gets worse. Representative Fine is a chairman of the Brevard County delegation. He supported and voted for funding the EOC design. The legislature, the House and the Senate, put it into the budget, and the governor signed the budget. Representative Fine voted for funding, but the issue is now he wants to tell us where we are to award this contract, who to award this contract to. Well, what is wrong with this picture? The whole system is set to prevent any political interference with procurement processing, yet this has happened. It puts staff into a very, very difficult situation. Staff is working in a pure environment. From the time an RFP is sent out to the time the proposals come in, all of that is to be kept very close, very secure, so there's no influence from anyone. Well, this circumvented the whole system. It goes directly to Kimberly Prosser, who's the EOC director and also on the selection committee, who is the most knowledgeable of this event. So it even gets more complicated. The EOC is 2 phases. The first phase is the EOC design. The second phase is construction. We're going to be going to try to get grants for funding for construction. So this really impacts this. And if it does, this is going to be just, it's inexcusable. But sending this letter to a selection committee member, it gives the complete appearance of a misuse of a public position. By using your spot, your position as an elected official where you actually control the funding, well, you don't control it. You have a say in the funding. It's just inexcusable to come and now try to recommend a bidder or recommend a company to do this. And counties and municipalities, they all have their own procedures for procurement, and they're all sound. They're very, very strict. We have a very sound one. And like I said, I've worked in this for years, and this just has gotten all over me for the fact that someone is trying to influence the selection of a contractor. You know, there's really all kinds of buzzwords you can use out there, cronyism, pork barrel, all that stuff. But the fact is this, it is simply wrong. It's wrong. You know, and don't get me wrong, there's something else I'd like to say. This can happen. A House member or Senate can send a letter to a county commissioner and say, "I recommend so-and-so." That's different than you go to somebody that's on the selection committee and give them a letter. Because we make the final decision on these things, and they can say whatever they want. But where it is pure is from the time you develop the solicitation until you sign the contract. So in that time frame has got to stay totally, totally pure. When you have political influence, it introduces poison to that, and it ruins it. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to recommend that we have Mr. Knox look at all of our policies and procedures, look at the state statutes. I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can possibly in our procurement process to prevent this. And I'm also going to send this to the state attorney's office to get his opinion. But I'll tell you what, we have to hold our politicians accountable for things like this. We have got to make sure these things don't happen. And I really feel, and Mr. Bocci, I feel for your staff that had to figure out how to deal with this. And when I saw it, I'm sorry, I went to ballistic. And you can tell I'm passionate about this, and I am, because it has to be done right. And we've had enough issues in this county with another instance in the clerk of courts, and not the current clerk of court. In fact, he's one of the ones who pointed this out, the issues. So we don't need another one. So that's my downer report for the day.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Knox, you come back with some recommendations on that. Let me, from the county standpoint, do we need to do anything now to help insulate? Is that going to mess up what we're doing right now? Do we need to do any damage control right now so that we don't slow down a process that we're working to do for the year?
Well, let me ask the chairman of that committee if they've acted yet.
I spoke to Kimberly Processor, told me about that letter. I believe, if I have it right, if I'm recalling correctly, that letter, she received it the day after the selection committee had already met and made its tentative selection. I was, the three people that were on that particular committee with Kimberly were Yuri Rodriguez and Tim Lowry over construction. Those three met, they made the selection, and I believe Kimberly received that letter the following day. So I don't think in that particular situation that letter would have influenced it because they already made their tentative selection. And I've got the purchasing director there.
Excuse me? There's no contract signed, from what I understand, as of Friday.
Yes, yeah. But I'm just saying that they took their vote and who they selected. And if we can bring the purchasing director who was involved in that up.
Yes, hi. I was involved in the selection process along with the committee that Mr. Abate mentioned. And Kimberly did mention she did receive the letter, but it was the following day. And the committee had already met, voted, made their selection. They do have a #1 ranked firm, and a contract has not been finalized. So they are still in the process of working on that.
Okay, thank you.
So are we still in the no communication phase?
Correct. Until the contract is finalized,
Exactly.
there should not be any contact with staff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my hope would be, Mr. Knox, that we would do whatever we need to do to help protect the procedure moving forward, although we have this little problem right now, so that we don't slow down our process. Thank you, Mr. Barfield. Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the audience needs to stay tuned till the closing minutes. That's when it seems as though the fun begins. But just to be clear, I hope you'll take the bull by the horns on that one, Commissioner Barfield. And when you do request that as the state attorney, that you put the disclaimer that Chairwoman Pritchett was kind enough to proffer. I know that I certainly brought a member into the public arena, though I would argue he was probably already there. It was put on the agenda far forward, and I understand that this may have just come to your attention. What I would ask is that we certainly would give Representative Fine the ability to respond. I don't know that there were any charges here because I'm 100% positive there's no voting conflict here. Voting conflict is if there would be a special and unique benefit, and as Mr. Fine does not work for this organization, to the best of my knowledge, he would receive no special and unique benefit. So I don't know the outcome of this, whether it was improper one way or another. I know that the guidelines set up are for us as a board. I don't know, and I certainly would like the answer and certainly get the response from Representative Fine and legal counsel of whether or not that this is a proper correspondence. I'll tell you what, it troubled me, because he said local option, and you're going to see an ordinance coming up for me very shortly asking to do away with a local option. But nonetheless, I certainly would like to reserve some time for him to come forward with his opinion as well as counsel to show that either what he did was incorrect or, as I suspect, probably not the case. And one other mention here, just for clarity, Madam Chairman, as we work forward, and I'm not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, but I'd like to go over something and help as we move forward. I think this will help you. It'll certainly help me for clarification. the motion was made on my first resolution that it was similar or the same as the previous motion. Well, according to, here we go, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 11th edition, motions are also improper when they present practically the same question as a motion previously decided at the same session. So in other words, the motion was in fact not valid, but as we move forward to invalidate something forward so it doesn't come for discussion, if we could make motions to withdraw Robert's Rules of Order, because all we have to do is need 3 votes. So if as we move forward, let's not mess with the rules. If we want to silence an individual, as we did with the first one, let's just be honest about it, and let's make a motion, I think, as we move forward to discard Robert's Rules of Order with 3 votes. That invalidates everything in this book, and we can move forward without any problems. And I congratulate you on your chairmanship and wish you all the best.
Okay, and just, I know you want to respond. Let me do this real quick, but I'm going to try real hard to abide by that. And, sir, I wasn't trying to do that, but honestly, when I read it, it looked like the same one with a couple words. And from being an accountant, we learn if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So I apologize for that, and I will get better at this.
This is 400 pages.
I know.
I don't expect you. This is very difficult.
I've got through a bit of it, but
Okay.
I will try to do much better, sir, and I apologize.
No. You handled that much more admirably than I could. I'm just, for simplicity and clarity's sake, just waive the rules
Please.
and we'll move forward.
Well, I don't want to waive the rules. I really want to try to work this to help us. But if you would bring that up, I'd be more than happy to embrace it and try to make those changes, sir. Commissioner Barfield?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as far as Representative Fine, all I'm looking at is from the county perspective and what needs to happen, what we need to do. What happens above that is, as I say, it's out of my pay grade. What I want to make sure is our county is make sure that we are secure from any influence and make sure that this doesn't happen. So I'd entertain anything he would like to say, but the fact is we've got to fix our own, make sure our house is in order to prevent anything like that from happening. So.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I've got an issue that troubles me as well. Excuse me. I'm listening to the statements regarding Representative Fine, and I'm sure there was no ill intent on his part, but there is no latitude when it comes to the state statutes and state laws. And I will give you one example that I'm in the process of being involved in right now. Approximately this time last year, Commissioner Tobias instructed one of his employees to do an investigation of my financial reports and discovered some discrepancies. And though minor, one I remember was I put down that my personal home, and that's exactly what I wrote, personal home, was valued at, and my personal business property was valued at, and stated that one was in Melbourne and the other was in West Melbourne. Well, technically, that's a violation because I didn't use the street address. And there were some others. And then he instructed his employee to give that information to Matt Nye, who is a citizen of the county. And Mr. Nye then filed an ethics complaint against me with the state. Now, as silly as this sounds, this is a violation. Technically, I committed an ethics violation. So I'm just saying to Mr. Fine, beware of the fact that you did something that doesn't appear on the surface to be of malintent, but in the state of Florida, that can get you charged with an ethics complaint if you have somebody with a vindictive, vicious attitude that wants to discredit your name. So a word to the wise, Mr. Fine. And in view of those statements, Mr. Tobias has repeatedly conducted himself in a manner that I consider, this is only my opinion, to be a discredit to this commission. And it started back in April or May at a workshop that was attended by most of the cities, including Palm Shores Mayor McCormick. And in that workshop, Mr. Tabaya accused Mayor McCormick of being a criminal. Well, he's gone to great lengths today to try and chastise Jim Ridenhour for saying that remarks that Mr. Fine made were criminal. He didn't say Mr. Fine was a criminal. He said the remarks were criminal. But that's enough for Mr. Tabaya to point fingers and make accusations. And I just quickly made some notations in here, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have them accurately. But Mr. Tabaya earlier said we should be promoting good discourse between county and fellow elected officials. Well, calling a fellow official, a city mayor, a criminal, that's not promoting this good discourse. And that we should serve the community in an upright fashion, well, I don't consider those statements to be doing that. And I consider what Mr. Tabaya did is treating this situation as though he's the judge and the jury, just like when he accused me of some nefarious whatever it was about an expense report that I submitted. And I might point out at this particular time, he did it when I wasn't even here, so I couldn't defend myself. And just for the record, that was back in May or June that report was filed. It was filed by my staff. My staff does those, not me. One of the complaints was that I spent an extra $50 because I needed legroom on an airplane. Well, anybody that knows me a little bit knows I don't need any extra legroom. So, but the only section of the plane that was available was that section. I didn't make the reservation. So, you know, it's just nonsense. So after Mr. Tabaya started this thing with Mayor McCormick, I asked Mr. Knox to put together a civility ordinance because we don't have one. We don't have an ordinance to censure despicable behavior. And fortunately and unfortunately, as long as there's been a commission, evidently there's never been a commissioner that conducted him or herself in a way that anybody else on the commission thought that there needed to be a censure ordinance drawn up. Well, sadly, that's not the case now. And I think a censure ordinance is in order. And so even though I had Mr. Knox do this last June, I've been holding on to it because I thought, you know what, maybe I'm being silly. Maybe I'm rushing to judgment. Maybe. Well, Mr. Tabaya continues to act in a way that I consider a disgrace to this commission. And what his intent is, I'm not sure. I know one intent is that he is bound and determined to get me defeated in the next election, and so this is just pure politics. But politics is one thing. His conduct against me and others in this community is beyond politics. So with that, I'm going to hand out these ordinances that I intend to bring forward at the next meeting so you all have a chance to look at it. Because like I said, I'm discouraged that I have to do this. I tried not to do it for 5 months, but his conduct forces me to do it, and that's unfortunate. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
I'll be brief on the latest commission drama. I just want to ask this board that we agree to disagree, that we start acting like adults, and that we conduct the people's business, because this is a waste of the public's time, this is a waste of our collective time, and this is just ridiculous. That being said, I have something positive to talk about, and we are back to doing our Elves for Elders drive, and this is where we take 70 wards of the state and we provide them with basic necessities, and we have different elders that have different needs, and it's really awesome and sad at the same time that the simplest of personal requests they have are things like calendars and slippers things that, we take for granted. So if you're interested in adopting an elder that is a ward of the state and doesn't have family, a little guilt there for you to get in touch with our office. It's
working.
You can contact either Danielle Stern or myself. Our office number is 253-6611. And obviously, you don't have to adopt an individual and get all of the items on their list. And sometimes people prefer to do that. You can drop off things to our office, such as shampoo and blankets and slippers and basic needs, and we'll make sure they get divvied up. Last year when we did this, it was very successful, and we had extra items that we were able to divide among the different individuals that we adopted over Christmas. So I am so excited that Commissioner Anderson's office started this before I got here, and that Danielle Stern has taken the lead on this, because she's very good at guilting people too into helping out these fine folks at Christmas time. So if you can help, reach out, and it's a good thing that we do, and it'll make you feel good taking care of someone who can't take care of themselves.
I have a question.
Sure.
You didn't mention rolls of quarters. Is that still a good thing? Because I know when we've done it before, we gave rolls of quarters, because a lot of these homeless people do their wash at the local laundromat.
Well, these guys aren't homeless.
Oh, okay.
These are just wards of the state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of them live in facilities and have some assistance, but they basically live at the very bottom, and then they don't have family, and for whatever reason, they're wards of the state, and they are joyful and tearful and very grateful to all of the outpouring of support they've gotten from the community in the past. So give us a call, reach out.
Thank you, Commissioner Isnardi, and thank you for your first comment. There's a little plaque on the door coming in. I almost wouldn't mind getting that maybe copied and put up here on the front for us to use as our mission statement moving forward about good debate and not getting personal. But thank you for that.
Well, and that's true. And I would like to just add, I don't agree with my wife all the time, but you have to, at some point, agree to be, you have to agree to be disagreeable. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say?
That's a good word.
You can agree without being disagreeable. You can say, okay, well, I don't agree with you. Okay, well, on this issue, we don't agree, and so move on. But to make things personal and to point fingers, I think is the wrong way to go. And I'm not saying, I want to also point out, with regard to Mayor McCormick, there are people in this county that do agree that she's a criminal. I don't, and she's not been charged with anything. So until she is, I think that a member of this commission to act as a judge and jury and point the finger at somebody, I think that's despicable. But Mr. Tobias done that with me now for the entire time he's been on this board. And this ordinance will not do anything to him. It just gives us, going forward, if he continues, or any of the others of us or commissioners in the future, conduct ourselves in manners that the commission deems inappropriate, it gives us a manner that we can go forward and chastise this person officially. So hopefully Mr. Tobias will clean up his program and he'll stop making personal attacks. And if he wants to get me defeated, go out and knock on doors and tell people something, but keep it civil.
Thank you. A couple of comments that I have is I've been getting calls all week and emails from a community that's a little upset about the Meals on Wheels funding. So I wanted to get this back in context. And the vote that night was that we didn't change the recommendations of the CBO board. They had worked very hard and came up with a top 10 list of funding. But in that motion, the discussion was, and I believe everybody up here supported Meals on Wheels funding. We understand the significance of that community outreach that we have. And on that note, let me make this statement for even the strongest Republicans out there, being frugal with funds, and we are one of them, that when you make an investment to keep someone in their home, the tax dollars saved in the future are much greater than the tax dollars you're spending at the time. The same way that we're repaving roads to keep from having to reconstruct them, you're making an investment to cut the cost down the road, and eventually, you start saving a lot of funds. And Meals Meals on Wheels has saved us a lot of tax dollars, so it's a very good program. But the comments made at that time was that we're going to bring it in as its own line item and take it out of the CBO criteria so that they're not having to go through that same process every year. And I think that was what we discussed at that meeting. So I want to clarify that because there's a lot of confusion out there. And Mr. Berman, you did state that, but it was the very last line in the article, and I don't think anybody read it to the end. Yes, ma'am. So I just wanted to make that comment so that we could clarify that. And Commissioner Znardi?
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because I was just speaking with the county manager before the meeting. Our office is working on an ordinance to include that as part of our budget, or a resolution, and I was talking to Mr. Abate about how we do that because this was an issue that I brought to Ian a few months back about how we get that as a line item, because then I think it takes it out of the discussion. It takes it out of because it seems to be the theme of the CBO funding, and it commits this commission to take care of the Meals on Wheels and program, and I think that's the smart option, and I think that's something that we should be obligated to do. So each year and this is probably a good time to talk about it since you brought it up. I was going to say that we set in the resolution I was working on, says that the commission each year decides on the funding level, and that way it's based upon what we can afford in the general fund. So, I mean, if you'd like, I can complete the resolution, or if it matters who brings it back.
No, not to me at all. I think that's wonderful.
Okay, great. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
And you know what, even if you have no heart for people at all, I mean, if you're just looking at the financial aspect of it, it's a good thing to do. So I just want to throw that line out there. Yeah, it is. It's good leveraging, good return on investment. And one other thing, I want to give a shout out to the USSSA. They had a ribbon breaking with over 400 people attending, and this is so significant. Well, I drive by it every time I come up here to a meeting, and they have 15 fields they put in, and it's breathtaking. Of course, I grew up as a ball player, so I look at this, and I just think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen when I drive by it, other than when I drive by new malls. But it's just so lovely seeing all these fields out there. And I just wanted to say, you know, we had the $10 million commitment we made of the TDC funds, and it could only have gone to these types of items at the time, professional sports. USSSA jumped in with another $20 million, and you can see the significance of that. And just a couple things, I think this is amazing. January, they have a fast pitch tournament coming up. They already have 32 teams signed up for that. In February, a President's Day Classic, they have 68 teams signed up for that. They are expecting 45 to 50 weekends a year filled up. In August 2018, I think this is remarkable, they won the Women's Baseball World Cup here on our county, which is, it's just thousands of people coming. When I traveled growing up, we'd go and we would take over a city for these tournaments we would go to. So it's significant to the tourism dollars that we're having come in. So I just want to give a great shout out to USSSA, and I think it's a real game changer as far as our economy goes with tourism dollars, and I want to really thank you for that. I also want to mention another thank you again to Commissioner Smith for all of your leadership over the last year, and I do hope I do as well as you did last year moving forward. And Commissioner Znardi, thank you for mentioning what you're doing with the elderly. And our office, we took on a project of collecting coats for school-aged children. So if you want to get a new coat or bring a gently used coat, we're going to get them to the elementary schools and junior high schools. We were called by a few of the schools asking us to help with that outreach. So that's something we're doing also. Mr. Abate?
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to mention that Mr. Leisenfeld and Mr. Walker joined me last Wednesday at that ribbon cutting, and the one additional point I'd like to add is that at that time, their CEO announced that they anticipated for 2018 having 500,000 people walk through that door in their facilities during that year. That was quite an impressive number, and if you look at the facilities, you can see that with their investment that we're very much looking forward to seeing that in fruition and the kind of opportunities they're going to bring to our community next year and beyond.
Thank you. That is remarkable. And Commissioner Znardi, is that an old light or? That's old. Okay, at that I call, one more thing, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you get time to enjoy your family and your friends. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys, and enjoy your diet the day after. This meeting is adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.